Hi guys, today we are going to learn how to install a domain controller. In order to install domain controller, we'll have to download the ISO file for Microsoft Windows 2016 server first, and which we have already downloaded. And now the first thing is we'll have to start our virtual machine application. So which we are going to start Oracle VM VirtualBox, and from there we'll have to click on new, and then we'll have to name the virtual machine box. So we'll name it as domain controller 01 Contoso, and we'll have to choose what kind of version we are using. We will be using the server version, which is Windows 2016 64-bit, and the type is Microsoft Windows. We'll go ahead and click next, and we can keep the memory size same, which is 2 GB, and we'll go ahead and click on next. And this will be a virtual hard disk. We'll create a new virtual hard disk. We'll create and create, and the format of the hard disk type will be using VMDK, which is virtual machine disk, and then click next. It will be dynamically allocated. Click next, and we can leave uh, the VMDK into the default location, and the initial size of the VMDK would be 50 GB. Go ahead and click create. So our empty VM shell is created. Now we'll have to start this empty VM shell. So let's go ahead and click start, and we'll have to select the ISO file which we have downloaded. We'll have to click on add, and then we'll have to locate the ISO file. Uh, my ISO files are located under D drive, and the folder name is installers, and we have got two files. One is for the Windows 10 enterprise evaluation, and the other one is Windows Server 2016 data center evaluation. So we'll go ahead and click on the Windows Server 2016, and then choose start. And this will take some time. We'll go ahead and show you each step-by-step process, how to install Windows Server 2016 and then promote it to the domain controller. So from this screen, let's keep the default option, which they're showing, like language would be English United States, time and currency format will be English United States, keyboard format will be US. We'll click on next, click install now. And onto the next screen, we'll have the option to select what kind of Windows Server we are going to install. We'll go ahead and choose the last option, where it says Windows Server 2016 Data Center Evaluation Desktop Experience. So click next, and we'll have to accept the license terms. Go ahead and click next. From this to screen, the first option is upgrade. We are not going to upgrade anything, so we'll go ahead and choose the next option, which is custom, and then click next. This whole process is going to take some time, so we'll come back once it finishes and have the next option to proceed. Once it finishes, it will pop up the screen to enter the password. So we'll go ahead and enter the simple password, as it's an lab environment. You'll have to remember this password, of course. So now we'll go ahead and log on using the same password that we entered. Our Windows Server 2016 is ready. This will ask few more things. We'll go ahead and choose those options that are needed and that may not be needed. Once the server starts, we'll get our desktop, and uh, by default it will pull the server manager uh, on the startup screen, and this network notice will be popped up whether you like to connect with your network or not. And we can also check the IP address for the server. And before we do anything, we'll have to check one more thing from the VM settings, our VirtualBox settings. If you see, we do have a network option, so we'll go ahead and click on network option, and then it says attach to NAT. So we will not use the NAT option, we'll use the bridge option. So let me tell you why. So if we use the bridge adapter option, then we'll be getting the same series IP address that we have in our network. Like for instance, if our network is 198.162 1.0 network, then our IP address will be similar like that. So otherwise, we'll be getting the different IP address, and you'll be super confused. So let's click on to this icon from the taskbar to see our Windows 26 server desktop. Yes, the server manager already started, so we can go ahead and click X out, or we can go to the local servers option and then change the computer name. So the computer name would be whatever we enter, and we'll go ahead and change the computer name, restart the server, and take care of the rest configurations. So we'll click on change, and then let's put the computer name is DC01 Contoso, so which is domain controller 01 Contoso, and then click OK. Click OK, click close, and we can restart the server now. So our server is restarting now. We can ignore this error message, and we'll go ahead and click on input, keyboard, insert alt control delete to go ahead and log on to our system. So there you go. Now if we like to check what is our IP address and what's the name of our system, then we can go ahead and click on search. It'll take some time as server manager is going to start, so we can click on CMD if it works. So yes, it works. So click command prompt, and then enter IP config, and there you go. You can see the IP address of the system 192.168.1.247, and you can check the system name from the server manager as well as from the command prompt as well. If you enter the host name, you can see like what's the host name. That's the DC01 Contoso, the host name that we just entered, so which means our default name changed to DC01 Contoso, and we have got our new IP address for our domain controller. For domain controller, you'll have to change your dynamic IP address to static IP address, because otherwise, if it gets changed, then the rest of system will not recognize for domain controller, which we'll show you later. But it's very easy to change. Like if you right click onto the network icon, um, and then click on open network and sharing center, and then click change adapter settings, Ethernet, and then click properties, and then double click onto the TCP IPv4. Then this will give us option to enter the IP address. Before that, we'll have to identify what IP address we can enter. Like we have got 192.168.1.247. So what IP address can we add? For instance, I like to add IP address 192.168.1.10. We'll have to check whether that IP address is available or not. So in order to check, we'll have to enter the command called ping, and then the IP address 192.168.1.10, and it should not be sending the echo reply, and it says destination host unreachable, which means this IP address has not been used. So we'll go ahead and use this IP address 1.10, and let's minimize this. We'll click onto the use the following IP address, and the IP address would be 192.168.1.10, or whatever is available from your network. And the default gateway is normally the first IP address of your router. So my router's IP address is 192.168.1.1, and that's it. And preferred DNS server, DNS server would be the same one that we're using, but for internet we'll have to enter 8.8.8.8.8, and that would be our DNS server. um, and then click OK, and then click OK, and then we can X out from this network configuration, X out. And now we have got our server ready. We can go ahead and check what is our new IP address. So this is our new IP address, which is 192.168.1.10. So we can go ahead and close this CMD, the command prompt dialog box, and now we'll have to install the Active Directory. So what we'll do from this server manager, we'll have to install that role. If you ever exited from server manager, then you can click on start and then enter server manager, then we can start the server manager again. So from this screen we'll have to click on add roles and features, click next, and this will be role based or feature based installation. Click next, and then click next, and from this option we'll have to select Active Directory domain services, then click add features, click next, click next, click next, and we can also check restart the destination server automatically if required. We can check this check boxes, yes, and then click install. So this is going to take some time, and once it finishes, then we'll have to promote this server as domain controller. Things are moving very well, so we'll come back and do the rest install. Active Directory Services installation is completed. We'll go ahead and click close, and then we'll click onto this exclamation sign onto the notification, and then there is an option called promote this server to a domain controller. We'll go ahead and click there, and since this will be a brand new domain controller, we'll have to select the third option. First two options are basically for the existing one, because we do not have any existing domain controller or domain. So this is why we'll have to create a new forest first. Our forest name will be contoso.local, and this is just an example. You can have your own name there. Click next, and then these are the default settings which will prompt for creating domain controller, and these are default configurations. We'll go ahead and enter a new password for the directory services register mode password. You can keep the same, but you'll have to remember it very well. And from this option we'll go ahead and click on next, and netbus name will be picked up automatically, so it takes a few seconds to show up, and then we'll click on next. And these are the default file location for database folder, log files folder, sysfile folder, so we are not going to change anything. We'll go ahead and click on next, and will all this option look okay. We'll go ahead and click next, and now prerequisite check will begin. It will show us the error if we haven't met anything. So it says all prerequisites checks passed successfully. Click install to begin installation. We'll go ahead and click on install, and this will take some time. So once it finishes, we'll verify how the domain controller works. The system was going to restart to finish the installation process. And as soon as it gives us the login screen, we'll go ahead and use our same password that we entered at the beginning, and the login screen will be looking a bit different than the last time, because our domain controller installation is done. But this will be our main domain controller, where we'll be able to add our users, computers, servers, and everything. So once it finishes the installation, then we can check the server manager and also Active Directory users and computers, where we'll be able to add users and computers. And onto the live system, domain controller always requires a little bit of more memory. So during our lab environment, although we are using 2 GB of memory, but in the live server, I mean, you'll be needing more memory to work it smoothly. So 2 GB memory may not be a help for running the operation quicker and faster. Let's go ahead and log into our domain controller. So it's showing Contoso, which is our domain name, and \administrator by default. So if you cannot see these, you can go ahead and click other user and enter administrator at contoso.local, which is our domain name and the password that we remember. So that's how we will be able to log in to our domain controller. And as part of the startup process, the server manager will be shown up, and our domain controller installation is done. We can go ahead and close this server manager or minimize this. And how would you know that the Active Directory services is installed and our domain controller is ready, we can go to the start and then click on the administrative tools, and also we can see all the Active Directory services modules. So this will be the module called Active Directory users and computers, which we'll use almost daily. So once you start that, you see like will where we'll have users, computers, security groups, and all these. So on the top left we can see the domain name. So if you ever forget your domain name, this is the place where you can come and check your domain name. You really do not need to remember, you really don't need to write, you can always come back and see. And if you double click there, it will expand. They have got all these containers and all this organizational unit. So we'll be using built-in computers, domain controllers, foreign security principals, managed service accounts, and users. So users will have by default all the objects that came with domain controller, and we'll be able to use new user from this container, and we'll be able to do a lot of work. We'll be able to create users, delete users, change users password. If we can unlock a user, if we can reset the user's password, we'll be able to do a lot of stuff. And now we can see the network icon is showing disconnected. So let's see what it has onto its properties. Right click onto the network icon and then click open network and sharing center, and then click change adapter settings, and then right click onto the Ethernet, go to the properties, and then double click onto the TCP IPv4. And I do remember that we entered the Google DNS, but for some reason it removed because it added the loopback IP address automatically as DNS, which is the domain controller. It's called 127.0.0.1. So we'll go ahead and add the Google DNS again, which is 8888. And once again our domain controller IP address is 192.168.1.0, and that disconnection exclamation sign or no internet sign will be gone shortly. And from here we do have an action pending, like for instance whenever we have got a new workstation to join it to our domain controller, then who will be able to join that workstation to the domain controller? By default any user will be able to join that workstation to domain controller, which is super risky. We cannot let our regular end users to join any workstation to our domain controller. So only our administrator, domain controller administrator, should have the rights to join those workstations to the domain. We'll see that option in a second, how we can restrict that option. And before then we can see we have a good connected network, so which means it took the Google DNS well. Now if we click onto the start, and then we have option called Windows Administrative Tools, and there is an option called Active Directory Services Interface Editor. So we'll go ahead and click on that option, and then we don't have anything here. So what we'll do is we'll click on file, we'll click on action and then connect to, and then let's keep all these options default and click OK. So there you go. So we'll expand the default naming context, and then we'll expand DC equal to control, so we can see all the objects name here. And once we have this option, we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and right click uh, onto the domain controller object, and then go to the properties, and then there is an attribute call msts machine account quota. So currently it has number 10. The value is showing 10, which means user will be able to join 10 number of workstations, so which we don't want. So right click onto this value and then mark it as 0. So therefore no user will be able to join the workstation to our domain controller. Only administrator account will be able to join domain controller. So guys, our domain controller is ready. Now we'll go ahead and create one workstation and join that to our domain. And before then, we can check our domain controller IP address if needed, and if not, we can also come back and see our IP address of this domain controller. I hope you enjoyed and it was informative for you. Thank you, and we'll come back soon.